United States Cultural Information presents WorldNet, an international exchange of ideas. Now from our studios in Washington, D.C., here is your host, broadcast journalist Cesar Cardoza. Good afternoon and welcome to WorldNet. Today, for audiences in Latin America and participants in Santiago and Bogota, we are pleased to present a discussion on youth soccer. Soccer, better known as football, has been played for over 2,000 years. With its roots in ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, and China, this sport has traveled across many lands to get to where it is today. Soccer's world governing body is the Federación Internacional de Fútbol, FIFA. Since 1930, FIFA has organized the World Cup competition open to all nations. As the popularity of football increased around the world, FIFA started the World Youth Championship in 1977. Despite the global appeal of football, it wasn't until the 1960s that the United States began to accept it as a national sport. Today, the popularity of football in the U.S. is soaring. Membership in the youth division of the U.S. Soccer Federation has grown in the past decade from 100,000 to over 1 million participants. This year, the United States will be competing in the World Youth Championship in Santiago, Chile. It will be the third time since 1977 that the U.S.'s national youth team has qualified to play. The championship games will be held between October 10th and 25th. Among the other countries participating are Chile, Colombia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Federal Republic of Germany, Italy, and Australia. Joining us today to discuss the increasing appeal of soccer in the U.S., as well as the prospects for this year's youth team, is Sunil Gulati. Mr. Gulati is Acting Secretary General of the U.S. Soccer Federation and Chairman of the International Games Committee. Also with us is Derek Armstrong, head coach of the U.S. National Youth Team and former professional soccer player. Mr. Armstrong has managed and coached amateur and professional teams in England as well as in the United States. Gentlemen, welcome to WorldNet.
Mr.
Gulati, the growing appeal of soccer in the United States in recent years has been influenced by many different factors. Could you discuss the major influences on this sport during the last decade?
I think perhaps the most important influence on soccer in the United States in the last decade has been the tremendous growth of grassroots participation, of youth playing the game. We now have 5 million individuals playing soccer in this country, 1.5 million of which are registered in the youth division of the United States Soccer Federation, and a lot of those players are turning into fans, are turning into spectators, and so on. So I think that has led to a great growth in the game at the college level, at the secondary school level, and will be translated in the future to growth at the professional level, as well as of our national team program. So without a doubt, the single most important factor has been the growth of the game at the grassroots participatory level in our youth soccer organizations.
Mr. Armstrong, we are interested in knowing how the U.S. team prepared for the World Championship competition in Chile.
Well, basically we came together on 5 different occasions, starting in April of 1987. We've been in a total of 49 days, spread over the 5 different occasions. The first 2 occasions were spent in assessment and selection. And when we got the team down to 18 players, basically it was team tactical preparation. The assessment was finally over, and we're trying to find the best players who are going to represent the country in the first starting 11. So the Chile trip in September basically was the players who will start the games in Chile in October. We've had probably 6 international games and numerous training games over this period of approximately 6 weeks in total, and we're quite happy at this stage we're where we want to be.
Gracias, señor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Let's go now to our participants in Santiago, Chile for their opening question. Please remember to identify yourselves and your organizations. Go ahead, please, Santiago. Sergio Brotfeld, commentator of the University of Chile's television system, Channel 11. The question is for the trainer, for Mr. Armstrong. Derek was speaking recently about the potential of the team, the U.S. team. We'd like to know what experience the games that they've already played with Chile and Brazil already, what experience has that been for them, taking into account the performance of your team at that time?
Gained in Chile was absolutely invaluable. Our preparation would have been incomplete without the trip. We played Chile twice, Brazil, and we had another 2 games, one at Antofagasta, which was a very good game experience-wise. I feel that we gained a lot from the trip. The players gained invaluable experience. There was things that happened on the trip which I hope don't happen on the next trip. So in some sense, we feel very good that some of the mistakes that were happening on this occasion we've had to work at so that it will not happen again. So the experience was very positive. The field, as far as the field is concerned, the players and tactically, that was a huge experience. Not only that, we got a feel for Antofagasta, for Valparaiso, and for the tournament in general, so that it was absolutely invaluable to us.
Gracias, Santiago.
Thank you, Santiago. Let's now go to Bogota, Colombia for their first question. Go ahead, Bogota. Thank you, Cesar in Washington. Bogota, Colombia, this is David Cañón, representative of the RCM Radio Network and also Radio Vision, the National Institute for Radio and Television in Colombia. Football, we feel, is a universal phenomenon for the masses, and therefore it is an exception is the U.S. Now that we're trying to make it massive in the United States, I should like to ask Mr. Gulati how the organization is in the U.S. as to the so-called soccer. Is it done similarly to U.S. football, to baseball, to basketball, or do you have a different organizational setup, Mr. Gulati? Could you comment on this, please?
In the United States, soccer is organized quite a bit differently than it is in our other sports that you've mentioned, baseball, football in the United States fashion. United States soccer is very much a grassroots organization that works its way up. We're organized by states, clubs beneath those states, and then regions because of the enormous size of the United States, which in fact is one of the problems we've had of organizing it at a national level. Beyond that, our national team program, in effect right now, is replacing what most countries around the world have, which is a professional league. We feel that it's very important within the next 2 to 3 years to organize a professional league, that goal is attainable, and that it's an absolute necessity in order to give our developing players, our 19 and 20-year-olds, some of the players who will play in Chile in October, the opportunity to go beyond that, to play in the international arena. They will have to have top-level matches throughout the year in a professional league. So in terms of organization, the United States Soccer Federation is the organizing body. It has 3 major divisions, a professional division, a youth division, and a senior division. The professional division at this time consists only of an indoor soccer league, the major indoor soccer league, but we're working very hard on developing an outdoor league which will allow us to compete much better in the international arena.
Gracias, Bogotá.
Thank you, Bogotá. We now go back to Santiago, Chile, friends, for additional questions. Go ahead, Santiago. Thank you very much. This is Máximo Claravilla, Channel 4, Catholic University of Valparaiso Television. The question is for Mr. Armstrong. In football, Mr. Armstrong, the clubs and the national teams take over all the attention of the fans. Basically, the clubs are the springboard that is used for seeking new football players with their lower divisions and with the football or soccer schools. My question, sir, is to know how the United States does in order to establish a good supply of footballs, an ongoing supply of football players at the level of the football schools, of the lower divisions, of football in the schools, and also football in the universities.
Things are a little different here. We haven't got the football clubs, as you mentioned, but we have in place here a very good selection process. In the 50 states, we have a state association who run a selecting program at various age groups. We have staff coaches in each state. We also are split into 4 regionals, which is the next step up from the state level, where the better players are handed through to the regionals. And now that the national team has been quite successful recently, the players from the regional go on to the national and are now competing at world level. So, in answer to your question, we have to improve in the United States our selection process. Our colleges are helping in this area to develop players when they go to college. But basically, we need to educate young players a lot earlier. There is no football clubs to do this for us. We have to do it as a federation, and the federation has embarked upon an education process in each state that we are now able to go into each state and give experience to younger and younger players. And eventually, I'm sure Mr. Gulati will agree that this is an ongoing situation which we need to improve. So what we try to do at the moment is educate each state in the United States and provide, hopefully, coaching staff who will be able to disseminate the philosophy of the senior federation.
I'd like to add something to that, which is simply the United States is in a very unique position, especially with regards to the Under-20 World Championship that will be participating in Chile. Namely that all of our players, with the exception of one, are currently at university. So the difficulty we have is not this conflict between club and playing for the national team, but between college and playing for the college team or the university team, and also the schooling that goes along with that. I know we had talked with the Scottish coach who was concerned about being able to get all of his players from their professional clubs. In the United States, our difficulty is in getting the players from their university, because all of our players will be missing basically 6 months of schooling to play in this tournament. We've had excellent cooperation from the universities, but it's a very different problem than most of the other participants will be facing in terms of that conflict.
This is the president of FIFA. Ask the question again, please. We lost the satellite for a second, apparently. At least the video, the sound. Alberto Fuyu, Catholic University of Chile Television. The question is addressed to Mr. Gulati. One gets the impression that the United States, in accordance with the president of FIFA, Mr. Jean Belange, are engaged in a second attempt so that the United States will truly become a soccer power. Through the supply the United States has just made with Chile, Brazil, and Morocco to organize the World Championship for 1994, through the wishes of Mr. Avalanche. to organize the first official world football, indoor football, in 1998. Might we get the United States to truly establish soccer in this way? Because one also gets the impression that the attendance of great players such as Pelé, Beckenbauer, and so on only served in this instance, the first time around, in order to awaken the enthusiasm among the youth, whose youth selections might be the first indication that the young people of the United States, that soccer definitely is becoming popular in the United States. Could you comment on this, please?
Surely. I think we've already seen that soccer is very popular in the United States at the youth level. The success of our youth teams, our national youth teams, has been quite good in gaining qualification for the youth tournaments, namely in Chile and in Canada for the Under-16 World Championship. In terms of the World Cup in 1994, that will obviously be instrumental in greatly popularizing the game even further in the United States. We think it is highly, highly important for the United States to get the World Cup in 1994, and that it will also allow us our professional leagues to gain much more credibility, and it will greatly add to the enthusiasm that is already in place. But I cannot overemphasize that enthusiasm is in place in the United States already. The World Cup will greatly speed the furthering of that, and we believe that we can host the World Cup and provide everything that is needed to do so, but bringing those matches to the United States with those players that will play in 1994 would greatly fuel the interest in the U.S.
My name is Sergio Livingston. I belong to National Television of Chile. My first impression is a personal one for Mr. Armstrong. I want to say hello to Mr. Gulati, but I want to say for Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong lives in San Diego. I hope the earthquake has not affected him or his people. The same that we wish to the United States team in the next World Youth Soccer Championship. Of course, it's important, the interest of the United States and the U.S. public in football. This has been showed in the Olympic Games, where football had the greatest number of fans in attendance. But it is no less true that in reviewing these figures, more than 1 million children under 14 in the United States have played the game, but only 100,000 below age 20. Apparently, all seems to go, the enthusiasm, everything goes through the indoor football. How can you counteract the flow of this indoor football, which for these children, which next, say tomorrow, have to decide whether there will be large football or will play football, concentrate on indoor football only? Comment, please.
Well, first of all, thank you for your comments. Secondly, we had my house shook a few times in San Diego, but no, there's no problems. We get used to it over there. Your comments regarding the indoor, I would question your 100,000, your figure for 100,000. I think there's considerably more under 20 players in the United States than 100,000. And perhaps Mr. Gulati will confirm that. But we don't see indoor as a threat. We're very, very pleased to see indoor going and being very, very successful. We at present have got to get the outdoor game established as a major entity in America. The Federation have got regional leagues now. I personally am a coach of a regional league out in San Diego, which has been established for 3 years now and is just about ready to take off, which is the Western Alliance. There's another league starting up in New York area, and there's one in Florida. So there's regional leagues now coming forward to counteract the attraction of the indoor. The indoor at the moment is very popular with the youngsters, I must admit, but without exception, I don't know of a youngster who would not rather play outdoors given the chance at a serious, decent level. So I think we have to improve our programs. Soon as Mr. Gulati can get a professional league going, the better, so we can give the boys some role models and go on from there.
I think in addition to what Derek has just mentioned, the idea of a professional league, or the need for a professional league, is vital. And I think the question was perhaps really asking, why do we have so many youth playing and not a professional league? Why do we have a breaking point, in essence, at age 18 or 19, and the participation or the enthusiasm beyond that age dwindles? I think that's true to some degree, and I also think it will start to change in the very near future as our youth players, that million and a half that we talked about, become adults, start to have their own children who will be playing the game, and also as our 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds have a pro league to aspire to. Currently, the only professional league they have to aspire to is the indoor league. We don't see that as a threat, but it can be complementary to an outdoor professional league. But there's no question that the formation of an outdoor professional league for our very best players will also act as a glue for them to achieve, and a goal for them to go for. So we see that as being vital in the very near future.
Regresamos ahora a Bogotá
We now
para continuar
go
con
back
las
to Bogota to continue with the questions.
Adelante,
Go
por
ahead,
favor.
Bogota, Colombia. Thank you very much. This is Héctor Rojas, sports writer of El Tiempo newspaper in Bogota. After the big Cosmos game in New York, there was a belief that football in the United States was decreasing in interest because the big players sort of faded and there were no big contracts. However, the figures you give us now tell us of a great popularity of football in the United States. What special plans for promoting the game have you both developed so that this quality will be enhanced even more among young people?
Well, if I might comment on that first, and then Derek can add to that. We have a lot of people that watch soccer games currently. However, we don't have a 12 or 20 team league where there are 20 or 30,000 people watching soccer games. But if we could total the number of people that actually watch soccer games in the United States and talk about our youth games, our university games, that would be a very large number. I think what we're trying to strive for is, in the 70s, when the Cosmos were here, it was a league that was formed at the top and trying to encourage youth to come to those games. Now the goal is to build a much stronger foundation on our youth programs and on our senior programs to act as a funnel for the professional. I think also in the United States, as some of our youth players develop into top players, and some of the players that Mr. Armstrong has on his team will be those players, there will be role models developed in the United States. While Pelé and Beckenbauer and Quinalha, all of those players were tremendous players and gave great popularity in the United States to the game. Now that game has to be expanded to a much broader base, and we have a number of things that we're trying to do. Professional league is only one of them. The role of the World Cup would be absolutely instrumental in adding much more popularity to the sport in this country.
Hector, I'd like to just add there that at this present time, if the NSL were to start up as it did in '67, it would be a most appropriate time. I don't think the base was in place in '67. I think everything is in place now for the growth of a professional league, and it's just unfortunate the timing was not quite right. And if we, in the next 2 or 3 years, can interest the people who were interested at that time, the corporations and people, the base to move on from here is definitely in place. I think we're seeing this in the organisation of the federation, in the organisation of the youth teams, in the organisation of the clubs, in the organisation of the full-time professional coaches employed by amateur clubs, something which isn't normal in your country. Your full-time people are employed by the football clubs. I've been employed for 7 years by an amateur club in San Diego, full-time. and we set a precedent. And I think there's a growth of this in the United States at an alarming level. I hear every day of somebody being appointed by a youth organisation somewhere in the country. So we've got the basis here, and I just hope that very, very shortly we can add the last piece of the jigsaw, which is the professional leagues, which just about give us everything that we want.
I am the representative of the 7 o'clock news in Bogota. Our country is also going to participate in the championship to be held in Chile beginning on 10 October this month. We would like to know what news you have received about the Colombian youth team, and also the characteristics of the team that is going to represent the United States in the youth championship in Chile. Is your school very similar to that of the Europeans or the South Americans? What are the technical, some of the technical aspects of your team?
I can only, the last person in the world to ask probably, because I'm too near the problem, but I'll quote you Luis Ibarra's quote when we were in Chile, that Armstrong's team is very much a South American team. And I was quite pleased with that comment, because I do associate myself with the South American tactical way of playing the game and the manner in which they go about playing the game. So from the point of view of approach to the game, very much South American. As far as Colombia, I do know that they beat Argentina. Anybody who beats Argentina has got to be good. And I believe they tied Brazil, and I believe they won the South American Championship. So Colombia has got to be one of the favourites. As far as individual tactics of the team, I absolutely know nothing. We have not received a lot of information here in the United States about the Colombian team. And being in a different bracket, I haven't gone out to look. But I do know from my comments in Chile and Brazil that Colombia are a very, very, very good team.
La pregunta para el señor Armstrong.
We have said that football is universal, with the exception perhaps of the United States. And within this universality, Mr. Armstrong, perhaps the World Championships have ended up being a battle between Europe and South America. Sometimes Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil have won. Sometimes Italy, Germany, Great Britain. And Mr. Armstrong, I'm also told that the United States is a country of immigrants, and when it comes time to select which would be the style that would characterize soccer, would it be South American soccer or European style soccer? Which do you think the U.S. would go for?
Well, at the moment, I think whatever influence the coach, whoever the coach of the team is, will influence the style of play. I think you are a sum total of your experience, and if we talk about me personally at the moment, I've got European experience and South American experience, and I don't think that my team goes out to play either. The team plays to the strengths and weaknesses of the players. So I would first say that whatever strengths we've got, we will use, and whatever weaknesses we've got, we'll try and cover up. But you can't divorce yourself from the manner in which you play. If you believe that soccer is a science, you'll play that way. If you believe that soccer is artful, as I do, then hopefully we'll try and play in an artful manner. I believe artful describes quite nicely South American approach to soccer, and I'm totally agreeing with that.
Once again, Victor Rosas from El Tiempo newspaper in Bogota. We will mention the large number of Latin American immigrants in the United States. I'm sorry, we've lost the sound again. We lost the sound for a moment. I'm sorry, we're still without sound from Bogota. Stand by, please. We have lost sound with Bogota. We're trying to reestablish it. In the meantime, Mr. Armstrong, we would like to have you comment in connection with this phenomenon of youth soccer in the United States. The fact is mentioned that this country is a land of immigrants, and these immigrants, each one of them brings his own or her own inheritance or heritage. Among the U.S. youth, this influence of soccer is felt, either European influence or South American influence. Is this felt?
I don't think so. In the present group of players, most everyone was born in the United States. I don't know that for certain, but Mr. Gulati will probably confirm that. But most of the boys have been born in the United States. From time to time, in the different teams in the United States, because of this immigrant situation, we will have players at an early age who came to this country from a different background. Generally, that is in the smaller proportions, and it isn't a major issue in soccer in the United States. Everybody else perceives this to be a problem, but in actual fact I don't think it is. We have very little immigrant players who can affect our program. Generally, the parents have been here for a number of years, and the boy has grown up in the United States or even born in the United States. So the impact of another country really isn't there. It's not prevalent at all. So we don't really come across that problem at all at the moment.
And I guess I would look at it slightly in a different way, if I might address that. Not as a problem at all. And on Mr. Armstrong's current team, there are a couple of players who are probably more affected by the Latin American style, although they were born here. But we've certainly been helped by that in some of our senior team. Our current national team, which is playing in the Olympic qualification games, in particular has two players, both from Latin America, Hugo Perez from El Salvador and Chico Borja from Ecuador, who add something very different to that team. They've both been instrumental in helping the team get to where it is now. We will soon be playing against El Salvador. Both of those players have been here for a number of years. They've played for the U.S. team for a number of years, and they've added something very different, which is a American style, the artistry that Mr. Armstrong was talking about earlier, and we're very pleased to have them. So I think they've been an asset to our program and to our national team.
Now we have reestablished contact with Chile. Go ahead, Santiago, for more questions. Sergio Brotfeld, Channel 11, University of Chile. For Derek Armstrong, please, I should like to place myself in the World Cup when you must come to our country in the coming days, and it is in connection with the aspects of the game that say as participants in such an important event. Did you have the opportunity to visit the stadiums and the playing fields in Antofagasta, in Santiago, the National Stadium, and in Valparaiso, the Valparaiso Stadium in Playa Ancha? What is your impression on the work, on the condition of these fields, and the possibilities then for those who are trying to practice good soccer in this World Youth Championship?
Well, Sergio, in fact, we did visit both venues. We visited Antofagasta and played a game against the local professional team, and we also played Chile in Valparaiso. First, let me deal with Antofagasta. The playing surface is very much like surfaces we have here in the United States, and this was very, very pleasing from our squad of players. The evenness of the turf and the genital stadia was excellent. The other thing which we got from Antofagasta was a very nice warm feeling from the people of Antofagasta. And we are going to return to Antofagasta very shortly, and we are returning as friends, which is a plus from the coach's point of view. As far as Valparaiso, again, another nice field. I'd be love to play in Valparaiso again. It means that we've got out of the first round. So I'll be very, very pleased to visit you again, and you can have a beer on me if I get down there. As far as the clubs, as far as the areas and the genital country in Chile, we can't say enough good things about it. We went there with an open mind and were treated very, very well in both venues. And we're looking forward to coming back to Chile.
Maximo Taveria, Channel 4, Catholic University of Valparaiso TV. We'll be very happy with open arms. We're waiting for Mr. Armstrong and his team, and we're going to accept his offer for a beer, and we hope that he will play other games in Valparaiso in the 5th region of the country. The question I would like to share with both of you, because it's my understanding that Mr. Gulati, in addition to being a doctor in economics, is a licensed soccer trainer. Therefore, half of my question is addressed to Mr. Gulati, and the other half to Mr. Armstrong, whom we must confess is a known admirer of Valparaiso. Mr. Gulati, women's liberation is very popular. Are there any U.S. Female teams that have sought to join FIFA? However, Mr. Gulati, Mr. Avalanche